Will the Senate please come to order? Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Senator Aquino. Senator Awa.
Here.
Senator Chang. Senator DeCoit.
Here.
Senator Dela Cruz. Senator Elefante.
Here.
Senator Favela. Senator Fukunaga. Senator Gabbard. Senator Hashimoto. Senator Ihara.
Present.
Senator Inoue.
Present.
Senator Kanuha. Senator Keohoka Lole.
No.
Senator Kidani. Senator Kim. Senator Lee. Senator McKelvey.
Aye.
Senator Moriwaki.
Present.
Senator Rhodes. Senator Richards.
Here.
Senator San Buenaventura. Senator Shimabukuro. Senator Wakai. Mr. President,
Present.
all 25 members are present.
Thank you. The chair has read the journal of the preceding day and approves the same. Are there any introductions this morning, Senator Ihara?
Mr. President, I am pleased to welcome again former senator, member of this chamber, former Senator Laurie Ocasio. Could you stand to be recognized? While Laura's here, she represented District 1, and she became a personal friend. And as it happens once in a while, we make friendships from way back from Senator Inoue as well as Senator Ocasio, and you find yourself having affection to both people who are competitors. So I wish them well, and I really appreciate being able to have this experience, because you don't have this experience very often when you admire both women. Senator Ocasio is a community advocate and a midwifery advocate, and the Hilo constituents, my parents are from Hilo. My uncle was a judge, a circuit court judge during the Quinn administration. And so Hilo representatives, Hilo constituents are fortunate to have both of you. So thank you very much, Senator Ocasio, and also Senator Inoue. Thank you very much, Mr. President.
Senator Richards?
Thank you, Mr. President. It's indeed a great pleasure to recognize people wearing a similar hat that you see me in the Senate floor today. It's cattlemen at the Capitol today, so I'd like to extend a welcome to the cattlemen for being here today. Additionally, I'd like to recognize my auntie. She's out there in the audience, Sarah Richards, and my sister, Pat Richards, and my office staff. Office manager, Marguerite Olson, you got to stand up. Reggie Garcia, my legislative aide, and Lisa Carter, my session hire. Thank you, Mr. President.
Senator DeCoit?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd also like to take this time to recognize the cattlemen from the different islands across the state that are here with us today, as well as joining them from the Farm Bureau, Mr. Brian Miyamoto, as well as Mr. Randy Cabral. And I do have a list of all of their names and their ranches, if I could have it inserted into the journal.
So ordered. Further introduction,
Thank you.
Senator Inoue?
Thank you, Mr. President. To add to our senator from the 4th District on the Big Island, introducing Senator Tim's wife, Terry. Terry is here with, of course, we heard of our speaker. Where's Terry? Anyway, she's somewhere. But Terry and the 2 kids, thank you for being here. Mr. President, as well, may I welcome back to the Capitol former Senator Bennett Misalucha. Aloha.
So, Senator Inoue, I believe AR invited people to go and meet his steer, and when I used the word cow, I was corrected by the clerk, who was educated that it's a steer and not a cow that he brought to share with us. So I now know how to speak correctly. Senator Moriwaki?
Yes, Mr. President, I'd like to introduce a number of people here. They will be doing a future of affordable long-term care this afternoon from 1 to 3. And we've got some experts here. Nisha Hemmel from the American Healthcare Association, Vice President of Sustainable Reimbursable funding for long-term care and for health care. We have Sean Sloan is from the Council of State Governments. We also have Wes Lowe, who is the CEO of Ohana Pacific and is very much interested in looking at a new way of us funding on a sustainable basis long-term care. Kathy Wyatt from the Home Health Care Association. And of course, everybody knows Caroline Caderao, Executive Office on Aging. I'm going to introduce Bennett Misalucha again. She's with the Workforce Development Council in her different role. And Poki Balaz and her mom, who has been doing a lot of work with dementia, but is now helping us in developing a new way of funding affordable care. And also Dr. Jack Lewin. Jack Lewin is the SHPTA director. And Lieutenant Governor Sylvia Luke, I think I saw her here. She is going to be a speaker this afternoon and talking very personally about how important it is for us to address long-term care, which has been neglected for so long. And then I see Charles. Charles Izumoto is my office manager. I think I got everybody. Thank you.
Further introductions, Senator Shimabukuro.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I see my former councilman, Tarapo.
Senator Shimabukuro,
yes. Oh.
I said AR introduced or got the speaker here, but I would be the president unless I'm being demoted by you now.
I apologize, Mr. President. I do see my former councilman here, Tarapo, who's now with Hawai'i Community Foundation. Mahalo.
Further introductions? If not, Madam Clerk.
Governor's message number 3 requests expeditious consideration of an emergency appropriation bill.
File.
Governor's messages 628 and 629 withdraw nominations to the State Council for the Interstate Compact for Juveniles and the State Council on Mental Health.
File.
Governor's message numbers 630 to 647 transmit nominations to various boards and commissions.
Governor's message numbers 630 to 647 are referred in accordance with the referrals on the order of the day.
On pages 4 to 10, departmental communication numbers 389 to 432 transmit various reports.
File.
On page 10, House Communication number 6 informs the Senate that the House has disagreed to the amendments proposed by the Senate in House Bill 470, Senate Draft 2.
File.
On pages 10 and 11, House Communication numbers 7 through 10 transmit various House bills which passed third reading in the House for first reading and referral to committee.
Senator Wakai.
Mr. President, I move that said House bills pass first reading by title and be referred to committee.
Senator Decoit.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any objections? If not, the motion is carried.
On page 11, Judiciary Communication number 25 transmits a report.
File.
At the bottom of page 11, Introduction of Measures, Senate Concurrent Resolution numbers 14 to 18, and Senate Resolution numbers 7 through 10 for referral to committee.
So ordered.
On pages 12 through 14, Standing Committee Report numbers 2747 to 2768, and on page 20, Standing Committee Report numbers 2827 to 2831 for adoption.
Senator Wakai.
Mr. President, I move for the adoption, of said standing committee reports.
Senator Decoit.
I second the motion.
It's been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? Any objection? If not, the motion is carried.
On pages 14 to 15, Standing Committee Report numbers 2769 to 2773, and on pages 19 and 20, Standing Committee Report numbers 2820 to 2826 for one-day notice, and on pages 15 to 19, Standing Committee Report numbers 2774 to 2819 for 48-hour notice.
So ordered.
On page 21, Advise and Consent.
If there are no objections from the members, we will be taking advice and consent on consent.
Standing Committee Report number 2735 on Governor's Message number 595, James Kunane Tokioka, gubernatorial nominee as Director of the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism for adoption.
Is there any discussion? Senator Decoit.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise in strong support of GM 595 nominating Mr. James Kunani Tokioka as Director of Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. As Chair of your Committee on Energy, Economic Development, and Tourism, I carefully reviewed the personal history, resume, and statements submitted by Mr. Tokioka for service as a Director. James Kunani Tokioka has been serving as the Interim Director of the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism since May of 2023. Previously, Mr. Tokioka served as the Deputy Director for the Airports Division of the Department of Transportation, and prior to that, served as a new business manager for Oceanic Time Warner Cable from 2011 to 2023, where he oversaw management, programs, and assisted with securing the largest single contract for Hawaii in the state's history. Mr. Tokioka was the Hawaii State Representative from 2006 to 2022, where he served among other positions as the Majority Whip, Chair of the Legislative Management and Intergovernmental Affairs Committee, and Vice Chair of Tourism. Prior to that, Mr. Tokioka was the County Council Vice Chairman for the Kauai County Council for 10 years. Mr. Tokioka has also worked with various hotels and resorts as an entrepreneur, owner, manager, and director over the course of his extensive career. During the committee hearing, he received exactly 100 pieces of written testimony, all in support from a wide variety of state departments, agencies, businesses, organizations, and individuals. Many of the testimony submissions spoke to Tokioka's strengths, skills, and character. During his confirmation hearing, which has also been described as a love fest for Mr. Tokioka, the Lieutenant Governor herself came to give verbal testimony about her strong support for him, praising him for the role he played in the response to the Maui wildfires. Another testimony of note was by the Hawaii Public Housing Authority Executive Director, who, even though time was short in the hearing, wanted to share that he contacted Mr. Tokioka on a DOT airports matter, not knowing he had transitioned to DBED. He noted that even though Mr. Tokioka was no longer at DOT airports, he made calls to address the executive director's concerns and then personally called him back. Mr. Tokioka didn't just refer to him to another office or pass off the matter. He made sure it was handled personally. This is the type of dedication and commitment Mr. Tokioka shows every day. Going the distance to assist others is not something that is new for Mr. Tokioka, but during the COVID-19 pandemic, there were many times that Mr. Tokioka used his resources to help provide the communities in need across the state. As you know, he represented a House district on Kauai, but that didn't stop him from helping my home island of Molokai. In assisting with donations for community food distribution, he did this without recognition or fanfare. Mr. President, over the past 6 months since the Maui wildfires, we have seen how Mr. Tokioka's leadership was a commanding factor in the state's response to get our residents and visitors safely into shelters, then into non-congregate shelters, AKA hotels, and set a path forward for more permanent housing. And to show more of his character and leadership, whenever Mr. Tokioka is acknowledged for his work, bless you, in the aftermath of his wildfires, the first things he does is credit and thanks his team at DBED and agency partners. He knows and sees the value of the contributions of everyone around him. Your committee believes that Mr. James Kunani Tokioka, with 27 years of leadership, experience within state and county governments, and over 40 years of business management experience in the hospitality sector, possesses the qualifications to successfully serve as a director and lead the Department of Business and Economic Development and Tourism. Mr. President, I ask for your support and all of my colleagues in the decision made by your Committee on Energy, Economic Development, and Tourism to advise and consent on this nominee. Mahalo.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Senator Lee?
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to ask to insert written comments in support.
So ordered. Any further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. James Kunani Tokioka has been confirmed as the Director of the Department of Business, Economic Development, and Tourism. Senator Decoit.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would like to take this time to introduce Mr. James Kunani Tokioka as the Director of Department on Business of Economic Development and Tourism. If you would please stand. And I would also like to introduce those accompanying him, Ms. Christine Rayton, Pono Tokioka, and from the Department of Business and Economic Development, Deputy Director Dane Wicker, and the Director's Office staff, along with the DBED program managers and department staff. And if we could all give them if you'd please all stand and give them a round of applause. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you. We hope that the rest of the business will not be too long, and when we conclude, we'd like to invite the director down for an opportunity to take photographs. For those of you new to the Capitol, the rules are that the president presides over the meeting but does not influence the vote from the rostrum. I was going to ask for a recess and ask Vice President Kidani to preside so I could say a few words, but I know Director Tokioka didn't need my words to get him confirmed, but I still felt compelled now to say we met most formally in 1996 when he was elected to the Kauai County Council, and I have seen his service and his evolution as a leader. Of course, in 2006, coming to the House and serving in the House until appointed. I happen to reside in Director Tokioka's House District of the 3 House Districts on Kauai, and we partnered on a lot of projects. But to paraphrase Martin Luther King, we're not so far removed from his birthday. The measure of a man is not what he does in times of comfort and ease, but what he does in times of adversity. And when the fires devastated Maui, Director Tokioka leapt into action, and what he was able to accomplish in moving people out of congregate shelters and into better housing opportunities, and to continue to coordinate the efforts and still have his department working with the legislature on pursuing economic development opportunities that will generate the revenue that will help us pay for the devastation in Maui was amazing, and it was certainly an honor and a privilege to cast a vote in support of your nomination, Director Tokioka, and I wish you nothing but the best. And as Chair DeCoit indicated, as a reflection of his values, he named every division head and acknowledged their contribution to help him get to the Love Fest he had in his hearing, and wants every one of us to know how important each member of the team is. And, I just want to let you know, mission accomplished. So, Madam Clerk, if we can go to third reading, please.
Beginning on page 21, third reading.
If there are no objections from the members, we will be taking third reading on consent.
Third reading of Senate Bill 2959, Senate Draft 1, relating to taxation.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2959 SD1 passes third reading.
Standing Committee Report Number 2736, third reading of Senate Bill 3091, Senate Draft 2, making an emergency appropriation to the Department of Education for food services.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 3091 SD2 passes third reading.
On page 22, Standing Committee Report Number 2737, third reading of Senate Bill 3092, Senate Draft 2, making an emergency appropriation to the Department of Education for charter schools.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Reservations for Senator Favela. Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 3092 SD2 passes third reading.
Third reading of Senate Bill 2387, relating to owners of land.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2387 passes third reading.
Third reading of Senate Bill 2333, relating to election audits.
Is there any discussion? Not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? Oh, no vote for Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2333 passes third reading.
Third reading of Senate Bill 2347, relating to crime.
Is there any discussion? Senator San Buenaventura.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand in support with reservations. My concern is that of the people who have opposed it, that this is basically like a three strikes you're out law that basically has been shown in California to increase imprisonment rather than help. And my biggest concern is that it also includes mutual affrays, which means fights among consenting individuals will now be considered as a potential felony. And for those reasons, I stand in support, but with reservations.
Thank you. Further discussion?
Mr. President,
Oh, Senator Morawaki.
I stand in support, very strong support of SB 2347. It comes from a community that has been assaulted, injured, and traumatized. They fear convicted violent offenders coming back to their neighborhoods time again and again. Offenders know they can attack many times with just a few days in jail because each attack is treated as a misdemeanor, a minor crime. Opponents say the bill is a thinly disguised attempt to punish and send Hawaii's unhoused to prison. Actually, we agree those committing crimes need help, including those with mental illness and substance use disorders. Numbers on the rise. IHS Executive Director Connie Mitchell knows firsthand the changing landscape of substance abuse among our houseless. Methamphetamine and fentanyl from overseas drug labs mixed with other drugs precipitate unexpected and more violent behaviors within and outside their shelters. Her outreach workers have been threatened with machetes, bitten by dogs, and forced to de-escalate individuals in psychotic or manic crises. Incarceration enables those with mental illness or drug addiction to receive treatment, the only way to break the cycle of violence. What's offered now in the new Department of Corrections and Rehabilitation. 20 years ago, residents demanded that we address repeated thefts. The legislature responded with a habitual property crime law. SB 2347 seeks the same with this habitual violent crime law. Under this bill, a person will be charged with a Class C felony for a habitual violent misdemeanor crime if convicted 3 or more times within a 5-year period for 1, causing bodily injury, 2, causing bodily injury to a law enforcement officer, or 3, compelling sexual assault, including on a minor. Like the habitual property crime law, the penalty is up to 5 years in prison and a maximum fine of $10,000. This bill has the potential of reducing the risk of injury to our community and sends a clear message that violent behaviors are not tolerated in the Aloha State. We need this bill for community safety and offender rehabilitation. I urge my colleagues to vote yes on Senate Bill 2347. Mahalo.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Senator San Buenaventura, any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2347 passes third reading. Senator Morawaki, I'm sure the people from the cattle industry here today agree with you. Next item, Madam Clerk.
Third reading of Senate Bill 2193, Senate Draft 1, relating to computer crime.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2193 SD1 passes third reading.
Third reading of Senate Bill 2334, Senate Draft 1, relating to election audits.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes? Senator Awa.
24 ayes, 1 no.
Thank you. SB 2334 SD1 passes third reading.
On page 23, third reading of Senate Bill 2310, Senate Draft 1, relating to harassment.
Is there any discussion? Senator San Buenaventura.
Thank you, Mr. President. I stand in support with reservations. My concern is that we already have an existing law preventing electronic tracking and making it an actual Class C felony. My concern is by passing this bill, we actually diminish the harassment caused by electronic tracking to that of a misdemeanor. And for those reasons, I stand with reservations.
Thank you. Further discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Senator San Buenaventura, Senator McKelvey, Senator Kidani. Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2310 SD1 passes third reading.
Third reading of Senate Bill 2251, Senate Draft 1, relating to indecent exposure.
Is there any discussion? If not, do we have unanimous consent? Any reservations? Any no votes?
25 ayes.
Thank you. SB 2251 SD1 passes third reading.
Referrals and re-referrals.
Referrals and re-referrals are made in accordance with the supplemental orders of the day that may be filed later today.
No further business, Mr. President.
Are there any announcements today? Senator Keohua Kalole.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to request a waiver of the public notice requirement pursuant to Senate Rule 21 in order to amend the start time for a previously scheduled hearing on Governor's message numbers 506 to 513, 515 to 517, 519, 604, 612 to 615, and 624. Mr. President, the start time was scheduled for 9:30. We'd like to move it to 9 a.m. in order to accommodate a joint committee decision-making before the deadline.
The waiver is granted. Senator Keohua Kalole.
Thank you, Mr. President. Your Committee on Commerce and Consumer Protection will hold a hearing on these measures tomorrow at 9 a.m., as I mentioned, in Conference Room 229. The notice was filed in the clerk's office during the recess.
Thank you. Are there further announcements? Senator De La Cruz.
Thank you, Mr. President. I rise to request a waiver of the public notice requirement pursuant to Senate Rule 21 to hold a decision-making meeting on SB 3265 SD1, 3327 SD1, and SB 2617 SD1. Your committee is requesting these waivers to meet the first taking deadline.
The waiver is granted. Senator De La Cruz.
Thank you. Your Committee on Ways and Means will hold a decision-making meeting on SB 3265 SD1 tomorrow at 9:55 a.m. in Conference Room 211, and we will be holding a Committee on Ways and Means and Judiciary decision-making meeting on SBs 3327 and SB 2617 SD1 tomorrow at 10:31 a.m. in Conference Room 211. The notices were filed in the clerk's office yesterday.
Are there further announcements? Senator Decoit.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to just note that this afternoon we'll be having a Senate Committee on Energy, Economic Development, and Tourism in partnership with Agriculture and Environment that will host an informational briefing on agriculture-related crimes. In light of the recent shooting on ranch land, this info briefing will address safety concerns regarding farming and ranching-related crimes. This briefing is intended to identify the root of these issues, address previous roadblocks, and identify potential solutions with the safety of all individuals being at the forefront. Please join us or tune in to room 229 from 1 p.m. to 2:30 p.m. Mahalo.
Thank you. Further announcements? If not, Senator Kidani. Oh, Senator Richards.
All right, in personal privilege.
Please proceed.
Thank you. I wanted to give thanks. First of all, I'd like to give thanks to my wife, Terry. You met her and the twins for getting things organized and being here. Mr. President, I want to thank you for giving a little latitude with AR coming forth. Also want to thank Acting Governor Sylvia Luke for her friendship to AR and for attending, Speaker for attending, the cattlemen for being here and bringing the cattlemen to the Capitol, and finally to my colleagues. Thank you so much. Aloha.
Senator Richards, thank you for having AR. Any further announcements? Senator Kidani?
Thank you, Mr. President. Colleagues, I rise today with a very heavy heart and request that we adjourn on a rising vote and observe a moment of silence in memory of a remarkable individual who touched the lives of countless at-risk youth in our state. Last Friday, February 23rd, we lost a true champion for our youth, our friend Sid Rosen, the founder of Adult Friends for Youth. In the mid-90s, when Kalihi was torn apart by the fierce rivalries of two powerful gangs, Sid Rosen stood as the beacon of hope amidst the chaos and challenges. Through the steadfast support of mentors like Sid Rosen, Adult Friends for Youth now continues his legacy of love and support for Hawaii's keiki. Today, we take a moment to honor the memory of Sid Rosen, a visionary, a mentor, and a friend to many, many of Hawaii's youth. In remembrance of his enduring legacy, I respectfully request permission to adjourn today's floor session on a rising moment of silence, honoring the life and legacy of Sid Rosen, whose spirit will live forever to illuminate the path of countless young lives. Ahui ho, Sid. May you rest in peace.
So ordered. Are there any further announcements? If not, Senator Decoit,
Sorry, thank you, Mr. President. If I may be permitted to do a late introduction.
please proceed.
I would also like to recognize our dear Deputy Director, Mr. Ryan Yamani, as well as a good friend of ours from Maui that is here, Mr. Westlow. If you could please welcome them to the Senate. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. President.
Further announcements? If not, the chair has one. The deadline for filing standing committee reports on Senate bills for second reading is 6 p.m. tonight. Senator Wakai?
Mr. President, I move that the Senate stand adjourned on a rising vote, observing a moment of silence in memory of Sid Rosen. And I further move that the Senate reconvene at 11:30 a.m. tomorrow.
Senator Decoit. It's been moved and seconded. If there are no objections from the members, the Senate will stand adjourned on a rising vote, observing a moment of silence in memory of Sid Rosen, and the Senate will reconvene at 11:30 a.m. tomorrow.